Right, well, welcome everybody to our May 2017 Google User Group meeting. Hi, my name's Eric Curts, and I'm a Technology Integration Specialist here at Spark. Spark is a information technology center up in Northeast Ohio, where we support about 30 school districts. And this particular meeting does cover a couple of different groups of folks. I do this as part of Spark, so for the districts that we support, the Google using schools up here, but this is also part of what we call GEG Ohio, which is the Google Educator Group of Ohio. So anybody, either here locally in the Spark area or across the state of Ohio, or honestly anywhere in the world, if you would like to join, you are certainly welcome. But we do focus on using Google Apps for Education, or G Suite, I should say, in the Ohio area with this meeting. This is a once a month meeting that we do as a Google Hangout. We also do it in person here. So if anybody is local to the area, you certainly are welcome to come and be here in person. Although by far the majority of folks just join us through the Hangout. We do this as a monthly Google Hangout on air. And the purpose of this meeting is to do a couple of things. First of all, we give you some important upcoming events. So if you want to know about conferences and training events and things that are coming up on the horizon, then we spend a good chunk of time talking about what's new in G Suite for Education, basically giving you a one-stop shop to catch you up on everything new that happened in the last month. And then we spend some time on Q&A. If anybody does have any questions, we'd love to help out if we can. And then lastly, show and tell, where we talk about neat things that folks are doing with G Suite for Education. Now, this document that I'm showing you here is available for you to pull up during the meeting and is editable, so that you can add your own comments to this or type in your own resources or questions. Absolutely encourage you to do so. You can get to this document at google.apps.spark.org/user-group. That is the main website where you'll find the schedule for when all the meetings are. You'll find the link to the live YouTube video, and you will find the link to that Google document agenda. Again, I said we typically do these once a month. There have been some months that we end up skipping because other things might conflict. And we are heading into the summer months now, so chances are we'll probably fire these back up in August. We'll probably be off in June and July. But if we do have any that we do sneak in there, we'll be sure to put it on the website and let everybody know about that. So let's go ahead and jump on into our meeting today. Once again, thanks for being here, whether you're watching live or watching recorded in the future. Appreciate you taking the time out for this. So let's go ahead and start heading down through our agenda here. Already did the quick welcomes, so we'll go into the important links. And really the only link I'm going to point out in that is the same one I point out every time, which is our sign-in form. There is a quick Google form here that you can fill out to indicate your attendance in this meeting, and that's whether it's live or recorded. If you watch this later on, that's perfectly fine. You can still fill this out. That is not a problem at all. This basically lets us know who you are and that you were part of the meeting. You can pick the date for the meeting, just choose today's date, and whether you were here in person or if you watch this online, whether recorded or live is fine either way. And if this was your first time attending a Google User Group meeting. I do take this information and share numbers with Google to let them know how many people attended the meetings. I don't share your information with them, but I use your information to send you a certificate of attendance for being part of the meeting, and that way you can turn that into LPDC for some hours. So I would encourage you, when you get a chance, now or later on, go ahead and give a click on that sign-in link and sign in for our meeting today. Next up down the list are our updates on our user group community sites. So we do have a Google Plus community site for both Spark here locally, as well as the entire state of Ohio. And we're close to about 1,000 folks in the Spark group, and we have recently crossed over 2,000 participants in the Google Educator group for Ohio. These links here will get you out to those communities, and if you have not visited them, I absolutely encourage you to do so. This is a great way to stay connected between the meetings, to be able to share resources, to find other folks around the state of Ohio that might be a great connection for you for what you're doing with G Suite in your school. What you'll find here is basically an online forum where you can come in and you can share ideas, post questions, share resources, talk about upcoming trainings, or if you just want to go there and lurk and read what other people share, that's perfectly fine too. But you can come to that site, and if you wish to join, there will be a button over here to join. I'm already a member, so mine says member, but you guys can just click join. It is, of course, free. It's just a Google Plus community, and you'll be able to be a part of that and connect with us there as well. Next up, we've got some upcoming events to draw people's attention to. Now, again, these will be a little bit more Ohio specific. So if you are joining from elsewhere in the world, we welcome you. Very happy to have you here today. But these will be more GEG Ohio specific. So a couple of quick things that I'm aware of. And if you guys have other ones, please do always feel free to add to this. Like I said, this is an editable document. So please jump on in. And if you want to leave a comment, or if you want to add an additional item here that I was not aware of for an upcoming event or training, that is great. Please go ahead and do so. So we have coming up still a few more boot camps that we'll be running here at Spark. These are for Google Educator Level 1 and Level 2. We just finished running the May boot camps, and those went phenomenal. Just really great time with the folks. We do have some coming up in July. I believe Level 1 may be at its max. I think we may have maxed that one out, but I know there are still some spots left in Level 2. Even if the Level 1 is maxed out, you can put your name on a wait list, because sometimes people have to cancel, and that may open up a spot. Our plan is to continue to run these throughout the course of the year. These are 2-day long boot camps. So if this doesn't work out for you in July, keep an eye out. We'll have some dates for the fall and the winter and the spring as well. And that can always be found on our boot camp website there. In addition to those trainings, there are some conferences. The Create Conference in the Toledo area is coming up on June 8th. There is a Google Summit in Avon Lake in the Cleveland area on June 13th and 14th. We do our big conference on August 4th. It's kind of a kickoff to get you back ready for a new school year, and we hold that here locally in the Spark area. You can still sign up to attend that. We're getting really, really close to having to switch that over to a wait list as well. We can usually take about 450, maybe 500 people for that conference. So we are getting pretty close to switching that one over to a wait list. So if you've been thinking about it, I would definitely encourage you to shoot on out to the website and get registered while you still can for that. And that is a free conference. That is the first Friday in August. Another one I don't know a whole lot about, but I've seen on the radar quite a bit, it's been popping up on our community site, is there's a Google Summit, a G-Tech Summit, August 8th at Genoa High School. And here's a link to the website if you'd like to learn more about that. So those are the ones I'm aware of coming up here in the next few months. Again, let us know if there's something we've missed that you'd like to add to that list. All right, very good. Well, the bulk of our time that we usually spend winds up being the what's new in Google, because again, Google is a moving target. We talk about that all the time. That's one of the great things about it is they're always rolling out new features and new products and new tools for us to use. Can make it a challenge sometimes in schools, as we're always trying to stay up to date on what is new. So that's one of the purposes of these meetings, is just to try to hopefully make that easier for you. Whether you're a technology integration person, you're trying to support your school, or you're a teacher who is passionate about Google products, and you want to make sure you are staying up to date on them. So this is the full list of everything I could find in the last month that was new. We'll probably won't go through every single one of these, but the links are all in here. So if there's something that I don't dig in as deeply as you would like to, please follow the links for any of these and you can get additional information. I'll try to touch on all of them, but some it might just be a quick visit where others will dig in a little bit deeper on those. All right, so in the last month, here's what is new in G Suite. First thing, we did have some changes in the admin console. So this would be more for people that are managing this particular one, more for people that are managing your Google Apps domain for your school. There's some new administrative settings for how to handle Google Drive files and team drives. So team drives, if you're not aware of them, this is a newer product that Google has rolled out. They've piloted it for a while and now it's available to everyone. And if you're not familiar with team drives, I'll just pull up real quick my drive and show that to you again. So team drives are over here on the left-hand side below your regular My Drive section. There's a team drives area. And what it does is it allows you to create drives that are specific to a group of people. Now, in a sense, you could say, well, Eric, couldn't we have done that in the past with like folders? Well, yes, absolutely. And that's what many of us did for a long time is we would simply create folders in our drive and we would share those folders. Well, team drives are that same idea, but a lot more sophisticated. There's a lot more settings that you can control as to when you make somebody a member of a team drive. You can really micromanage what they are and aren't allowed to do with the things in there. Where if you do a folder, it's pretty much, you can either read what's in the folder and that's it, or you can edit everything in the folder. I mean, it's kind of like a one or the other. With this, it's a whole lot more granular as your control over it. One of the really key things though about team drives is that when somebody puts a file into a team drive, the ownership of the file changes. That's really the most key distinguishing thing, is that when you put something in a team drive, you give up ownership of it. It no longer is owned by you. It's actually not owned by a person. Instead, it's owned by the drive, the team drive. And this is a great idea for, again, organizations that have people that come and go. You know, you end up retiring or you get a new job or you move to a different district. Well, in those cases, you don't want suddenly, you know, somebody's files to go with them and be deleted, or maybe, you know, not have the proper permissions to be able to find the stuff you need. And so if there's a important project going on that you're working on long term, Team Drive gives you a central place to have team members store all those files, knowing that those files are going to be properly owned by the team drive and nobody will be accidentally deleting something. Well, what they're doing is this news article is indicating that there are some new settings for what we can do with the management of Team Drive. And so what's happening is Google is adding more and more features as time goes on with Team Drive, including now the ability for users to migrate their own files into Team Drive. So if you turn this setting on in the admin console, users are now allowed to take individual files from their drive and move them into the team drive. Now, of course, they have to have, edit access to those files. They have to, be an owner of that file, or the owner of the file has to be a member of the team drive. But now users are allowed to begin moving files into the team drive, not just create new files in there, but migrate their existing files over. As a administrator, you can do the same as well, but a little bit more powerful. Administrators can actually now move folders into a team drive as well as just files. And that ability to do so can be delegated out to other users as well. So again, they do warn you, because it's a whole new concept. Don't forget, any file that does get moved in then becomes owned by the team drive. So just make sure as you roll this out to your staff, if you give them the ability to start moving things into a drive, just make sure they understand what's actually happening. That when they do drag and drop a file from their drive into the team drive, they are transferring the ownership to the team drive. Does let you know that when they do that, that file will be removed from their drive. It'll be in the team drive. However, it would still show up in like shared with me or recent locations if it was also in there. All right, so just be aware of those new settings for Team Drive. Next one is just kind of a really neat thing to be excited about, and that is Chagrin Falls has a 100% rate of teachers becoming Google certified. This was a blog post that Google put up at the beginning of May talking about districts that have been doing some creative things with professional development. Well, Chagrin Falls is just up the road from us. We are, Spark is located here in the Canton area, so we're in Northeast Ohio. Chagrin Falls is not too far away, just up the road here from us. And they, in this article, they talk about what Chagrin Falls did to move all 100% of their teaching staff through creative, flexible professional development so that they would be able to become Google certified educators, and that they were able to reach that 100% mark this year. So first of all, just wanted to say we're so proud to be close by to Chagrin Falls, and what an awesome job they have done to be an example of how professional development can meet the needs and the schedules of teachers to help them get the certification for Google Educator. So great job to Chagrin Falls. I want to congratulate them on that. By the way, that sort of certification, that is what we're talking about when we talk about things like boot camps. Those also are what gets you ready for things like certification, and that can be done in a number of ways. And again, Chagrin Falls has been creative in their delivery of PD to their staff. So great job, guys. Next in the news, Google Sites got some updates, and there's a couple of updates. I may pull them together. We'll see. But this first one came out early in May, and it's the idea that now we are able to vertically group items. Okay, so this was something that we did not have the ability to do in the past. I'll show you what I mean. Let me grab a sample site. This is just a site that I've used probably in one or other of my Google Sites trainings. This was what I created as a result of it. It's just a demo site. But in the past, what you might remember is that whenever you added something, so if I came in here and I inserted a text box or images or whatever, anytime you add something, it basically either had to be in its own section. Let's call it a section. So you see how you've got this horizontal section here, and they can be different colors. If you add a new item, it had to be in its own section, or it had to be next to something, like to the right or left of something in a section. So if I came in here and I added a text box, and I'll just put in, here is some sample text. Okay. In the past, I said, I don't want that there. I want to put that somewhere else. I could drag it, of course, and I could put it like next to some other text, and that was fine. I would be allowed to do that. But I wasn't able at that time to put it underneath the text inside of the same section. Well, now we can. So if I grab this little text box I created, let's say I wanted to put it underneath my picture here. I would not have been able to do that in the past. It would have had to be in its own section or to the right or left. Well, if I grab this now and I drag this up, you'll notice if I put it, it's going all over the place. If I put it on my picture, you notice I get this blue line. So if I put it near the bottom or near the top, or to the left or to the right, the blue line shows me where it's going to drop the text. It used to be only left or only right. Now there's top and bottom. So I can do bottom and boom, there we go. That text is now below the image and is sort of hooked as a group. It groups that together as now a vertical group. So the point is you got a lot more flexibility, and that's something that I think a lot of us were sort of feeling the pain on when we were trying to, I love the new sites. It is very, very easy to use. But you know how that goes. If something's very easy to use, that may mean it also is lacking features. Sometimes those two kind of go hand in hand. So Google's been adding new features, and as they've been doing so, trying to find ways to make sure that it maintains the ease of use. And so now, yes, we do have the ability to add things in vertical groups that we did not have before. So happy to see that. Speaking of sites, we also got a hint about what new things are coming to sites as we get the update from classic sites to the new sites. So back again at the start of May, Google posted this, where they were updating sort of what's going to be happening with this migration. And we've all known, they've said for quite a while, that with the new sites, there would eventually be an option to migrate your classic sites over to your new sites. And they've been telling us they'll give us plenty of warning about that and plenty of time to make that happen. So first of all, if you just look at on the face of it, it looks like this article is just about that timeline, but there's actually some really neat stuff buried further down in. As far as the timeline goes, basically what they're saying is that by the fourth quarter of this year, so by the end of 2017, they say they will launch features in classic sites that will help you migrate to the new sites. So by the end of this year, we're supposed to be getting some kind of a migration tool. I mean, I don't know what to call it other than that, but something will appear in the old version of sites and classic sites. That'll be a wizard or something you can run through that will help you move your old site over to the new sites. In 2018, they say they're going to provide tools that will enable the administrators to effectively manage this migration process. So it may be if people don't move their sites, we as administrators can move them for them. Perhaps we'll have to keep an eye and see how that turns out. The next thing they talk about is, what about the old sites going away? You know, that they're going to be shutting it down. That is going to happen at some point. So again, they're letting us know a few things here, such as when this gets announced, you know, when this schedule comes up, it will include at least a year of unchanged operation. And they've been promising that from the beginning. So that's nothing new. We are happy to hear that when they say, okay, we now know classic sites will be shutting down by such and such a date, it will have at least a 1-year lead up to that before it does get shut down. And even after that, they're saying there'll be 3 months where you can still read the web page, even if you can't edit it anymore. Then this is what really caught my attention, was that before this can happen, and we've been saying this the whole time, they can't have a migration tool and they can't turn off the old sites until some things happen in the new sites, because we're missing features. There's things we've done in classic sites that if we don't have a new option for that in the new sites, that's going to be a problem, because the old sites aren't going to transfer over that well. So they've said these updates will include at least the following, and the at least is really important. So basically they're just saying these are some things we're guaranteeing, but there's going to be more. There's going to be other things that get added to the new sites as well. But what are we getting? But for sure over this, over this period, the ability to search your site. That's something you can do in classic sites that you can't do yet in the new sites. Restricting access to published sites. So what they're saying there is, as best as I can read that, and I guess we can all interpret these because they're a little bit vague there, but I'm thinking what they're talking about is page level permissions, which is what we have right now. Well, that goes into the next one too. So these two together, more granular access to different sections of sites. So being able to restrict access to a published site and have more granular access makes me think of what we used to call page level permissions, where you could go in and page by page say, this page is public, this page is private, this page is public, and these 3 people can edit it. This page is whatever. And being able to go in and micromanage the different parts of your site, that is one of the great things that I've always loved about Google Sites. And of course, that is coming to the new sites. Embedding URLs and code. So that does sound like, when you talk about putting code into a site, that that's going to allow us, I'm hoping, to get into the HTML editing of the site. But for sure, this will allow for maybe gadgets, things we used to be able to add to the old version of sites that right now we don't really have an option for gadgets. So that may be including that. Notifications, creating larger sites with deeper hierarchy. What we mean by that is, right now, if you do have a drop down, you can only have one level drop down. It doesn't drop down more than that. You can't put a page under a page under a page. There's just one level depth to it. So deeper hierarchy. Corporate themes, which I imagine means we could create our own themes and push them out to our users, which is what we could do in the classic sites. You can make a theme for your district and say everybody should be using this theme so our pages all look the same, at least in general. More text formatting options. People will definitely appreciate that. Right now, not a lot of options there. Pretty much bold, italic, you know, that's about it. So it'd be nice to have more options for that. Custom web addresses, obviously that has to happen. Right now, when you do create a site, the published site gets a pretty lengthy URL. If I go to view this published site, you'll see it's sites.google.com/apps.spark.org/sample006/home. That's pretty long. That's pretty crazy. So we do need the ability to do custom web addresses, which we do. For example, on our user group site, this is a Google site, but it's the classic site, so it's google.apps.spark.org. We have a custom URL, so that will be necessary. And API capabilities. So that's just some of the things coming. I'm sure there'll be a lot more, but that does give some encouragement that a lot of these new features will be coming sooner than later to Google Sites. All right. Next up, talking about something going away. Now that happens every now and then. In this case, it is the web clipboard. The web clipboard is going to be removed from docs, sheets, and slides. I'm assuming drawings as well. They don't list it there, but probably all of the core Drive tools on September 13th. That will be happening. So let's take a look at that. Here we go. Not a whole lot of information in this other than saying that people, they feel, just really aren't using the tool. They said it is rarely used. And so based on that, they believe that it is a tool that they no longer need to support. Now, having said that, I respectfully disagree. I think that it is a good tool, but I wish they were not getting rid of. If you've never used the web clipboard, here's the idea. I know it's going away, but you know, at least for the next few months, you can be aware that it exists. The web clipboard, the idea is if you go up to edit and you do your normal copy and paste, that's just, you know, if I go and I say, I'm going to copy, I'll just grab this. I'm going to copy this line. If I come up and just do a regular copy, oops, I didn't mean to do a cut, sorry about that. If I do a regular copy and a regular paste, it just copies that into memory and then it pastes it and that's it. I mean, it's a one, your computer's memory can hold one thing that is copied and it's just for the computer you're sitting at. But if I go in and highlight this and instead of using just regular copy paste, if I go to web clipboard instead, from the web clipboard, I can copy that text to my web clipboard. And the thing is, when it copies it to my web clipboard, now if I go up to web clipboard, I can paste that back into my document. Here's what's different though. Number one, I can copy a bunch of things into my web clipboard. So I could grab that one, then I could grab something else entirely different, and I could go to the web clipboard and copy that too. So the point is, I can keep copying a whole bunch of things, and I can have more than one thing in the web clipboard. I can have text, I can have pictures, I can have all sorts of stuff in there. And so the web clipboard, one thing I liked about it was just the fact that it wasn't just one item. You could copy as many things as you wanted. If you needed to be routinely pasting a whole bunch of stuff, you didn't have to just do it one at a time. You could have a whole list of things saved to the web clipboard. The other thing I liked about it is it truly is a web clipboard, which what I mean is as soon as I do this, it is now in my web clipboard regardless of what computer I'm on. So I could be sitting at work like right now and I could copy something. Then I could go home, sit down on my desktop computer, open up my same account, go back to the web clipboard, and those things are still sitting there in the web clipboard. It's a great way to be able to move content from one computer to another. You know, if I'm working on something, I don't have to worry about, oh shoot, I copied that, but I copied it at work. It's no, it's in my cloud clipboard, so to speak. Well, I thought that was a pretty neat tool. I really like that. I used to mention that a lot of times when I would do a training on awesome features of Google Docs or fantastic features of Google Docs. Well, it appears it is going away. So unless we can mount a petition to say, no, Google, don't take that away, their belief is that it is not used very much. And so they are going to be discontinuing the web clipboard. as of September 13th. So heads up about that one. Next up, just real quick, Google Communities. They now have a new option to make it a little bit easier to get people to join your community. If you do have a Google community, you can now go to the invite person option, but you can get a link that you can now send out to people that if they click will allow them to join your community. So if I pop over to our GEG Ohio community, I'm probably, I don't know, I may have to do it on my other account. I'm actually the manager on my other account. Yeah, I might have to. Let me grab my other account real quick. So I do not know that I'll be able to show you on this one. Let me pull up GEG Ohio over here real quick. Manage it with a different account. Maybe. I'm trying to bring it up here. Here it comes. Just run a little slow. Okay, so here's GEG Ohio. So from GEG Ohio, here I'm not just a member, I'm actually the owner of it. So if I come here and I say I want to invite people to GEG Ohio, instead of inviting just people by themselves, I can say invite people with a link. And what it will do is I can turn on this feature, and suddenly I now have this link that I can copy, and anybody that I give this link to, it would allow them to join the community automatically. So it just makes it a little bit easier for some, just saves a step, makes it easier for them to be able to join a community right from a link. All right. Next up, find out where I'm at. Now this next one, I'm not endorsing. I don't really know enough about it, but it caught my eye and I thought, well, you know, I'm going to make people aware of it. I would absolutely encourage you to do your research, make sure that this is something that makes sense for your school and that everything is, you know, on the up and up. But this came through my feeds and I said, hey, you know, might as well share it. A Chromebook buyback program by Clover Wireless. So this was an article on Chrome Story that popped up about this, and I went ahead and followed the link to their website, and it's this company called Clover Wireless. And basically the idea is if you are a Chromebook using district, you may get to the point at some time where you want to retire a certain group of Chromebooks because you want to replace them with the newest. I don't know, folks probably keep Chromebooks for 3, 4, 5 years. And then after that might start saying, it's time to rotate those out and bring in a new batch. This is a company that says they will buy back your old Chromebooks. And so basically you can sell back to them as little as 1 or as many as thousands. They said they don't have any sort of limit on that. And basically you just tell them what you have and they'll tell you what they'll pay you for them. So something to consider if you are in a situation where you want to upgrade your Chromebooks and you're not sure what to do with some of the older ones. At least it's worth investigating. So again, always, do your research there. I don't know this company personally, but it's something that looked like it might be worth investigating. Next, just a heads up with chat. Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides do have a chat ability up here in the top right-hand corner. You click a little chat button, and it brings up this chat window here over on the side, so people can talk live inside the document. Google just wanted to give you a heads up that chat is migrating from what was called Google Talk now to becoming basically Google Hangouts, the Google Hangouts chat. So Google Talk is being shut down. That service is going away, and instead the Hangouts service. Now I know you say Hangouts, isn't that video? Hangouts kind of applies there. There's Hangouts text, there's Hangouts voice, there's Hangouts video. This is just the Hangouts text chat. They're just saying that is going to be replacing the Google Talk with Google Hangouts. The point of why that's important to know is, well, maybe you've got Hangouts disabled in your district, for whatever reason, or maybe you've got Hangouts turned off for certain groups. They're just letting you know that you really should go in, read through this article, and make yourself aware of the permissions that need to be turned on or off in your admin console to adapt to this change, because what you've got turned off in the past may not apply when this change happens, and vice versa. Maybe you were using it and now you won't be able to until you go in and make some adjustments. So this article gives you the big picture overview, but then they have a help center article that goes into way more details on all the possible settings you might set and find the one that makes the most sense for your district. So just heads up on that. Now this next one would be one that might be helpful if you're a Todoist user. If you're not familiar with Todoist, Todoist is a app that you can use for like a to-do list, a checklist. If you're trying to manage tasks, it is not a Google product. Todoist is its own thing. I have used it in the past. I'm currently not using it right at the moment, but about a year or so ago, I was playing around with it. And I do like it. I do think it is a nice tool to help manage your tasks and your to-do lists. But and there's other tools, like you can use Google Keep, and there is a task feature built right into Google Tools. So if you've been on the fence saying, I don't know, I'm not been able to find a really, really good to-do app, something that's going to help me manage all of my upcoming appointments and my things I need to take care of. You know, well, of course, calendar is fantastic, but we're talking more about a check-off list. Like, here's things that I need to take care of and check off. This could maybe for you be something that pushes you a little bit more toward Todoist, and that is they've announced that they now are going to have integration with Google Calendar. So basically what you can do is you can have a Todoist account set up, and then you can go into the settings and you can turn on calendar integration. And what it will allow is anytime you put something in the Todoist app for an upcoming, or a task you need to accomplish, it can link that right into your Google Calendar, and vice versa. It can sync from Google Calendar back over to your Todoist app. So again, if you're somebody looking for something to help manage all of the things you need to do, just be aware this app has gotten a little bit more powerful now that it has the Google Calendar integration. The next one is more for mobile, but I do believe, from what I've heard, we are going to be seeing this on the web as well. I think I saw that somewhere. But what this is what's called Smart Reply. And Smart Reply is something that for a while only was showing up in Google's Inbox app. And I don't use that. I just use the regular Gmail app on my phone. But this is something they were piloting and playing around with in Inbox. They're saying now Smart Reply is going to be available in regular Gmail for Android and iOS. And what is Smart Reply? You may have already seen this. It may have surprised you when it popped up. But when you open up an email message in your Android or iOS version of Gmail, at the bottom, there's going to be these little buttons on a lot of your messages offering replies that you might want to send back to somebody. So it will read the email and, using artificial intelligence, say, how about let's do Monday, or Monday works for me, or either day works for me, because the question was, do you prefer to meet Monday or Tuesday? The artificial intelligence is able to read through that and figure out what are some common responses you might want to send to that person. So basically, if you get an email and one of those responses is actually what you were like, yeah, that's actually what I was going to say, that seems fine, you can just tap that and boom, send that reply, rather than having to type out the entire email message, which again could be useful if you're on the go or if you're in a spot where you really can't be typing easily. This is an easy way to reply to somebody quickly. And so that has already shown up on Android and iOS. I've got an Android phone and it is showing up now. When I open up Gmail, I am now getting these at the bottom. I thought I heard somewhere that this was eventually going to come to all of the Gmail products, even on desktop, but I may just be remembering that wrong. But for now, it is already on the mobile versions. Next up, Google I/O. So there's a chunk of stuff here. We'll just throw all of these together because they sort of all fall into the same category here. Every year, once a year, Google has a conference called I/O, and it's their developers conference. It's basically, it's usually where they announce sort of some of their big announcements for the year. What new things are coming out over the next year. Sometimes they'll announce, that's where they announced Chromebooks. Chromebooks were announced at I/O many, many years ago. So that's an example. Or Google Home or Google Glass, or, a lot of times new products. This is something they announce. So I always am excited when I/O comes around to see what will be new. So there's quite a few things here that came out of the I/O announcements. There are some links here, though, if you want to basically see everything that came out at I/O. I think this first link is probably, let me see if the first link is, yeah, this one has all 101 announcements from Google I/O. And so Google has basically pulled together everything on Google Home and Assistant, on AI, on Google Photos, Android and Google Play, virtual reality and augmented reality, YouTube, and on and on and on down the line. So these are all of the announcements that got made. Thing is, folks, not all of them apply to education, obviously. I mean, you know, some of them are very specific for developers and things like that, or some might be more, they may lend themselves more to home use or things like that. A couple things caught my eye, though, so I did want to just mention a couple here because these did catch my eye. One was Google Expeditions is going to be getting augmented reality content. So this was announced at I/O, and this one really is something we can get excited about for education. So first of all, I think most of us are very familiar with Google Expeditions. Expeditions is where you take, you know, Google Cardboard, or, well, it could be really any VR device, but Google Cardboard is the cheapest. That's what I've got several Google Cardboards. And with Google Cardboard, you can drop your phone in there. And then, let me see if I can scroll down to the spot where they actually talk about Expeditions. Oh, there it is. Here it is. So you can drop your phone into Google Cardboard, and then it creates a 3D looking virtual reality world. And Google has added, I don't know how many now, probably hundreds of expeditions that you can explore as if you're really there. So it's like you are at a famous ruin, or you are, we did one with the school down the road here on clouds. The kids were learning about clouds. And so I went down and helped them run that one. And there's an expedition all about clouds. And so the kids could see what it'd be like to be up in the sky, looking at different types of clouds. And it was really neat. Well, what they're doing different now is, instead of it just being VR, that's really what Expeditions are. Expeditions, it's 3D virtual reality. It's like you're inside of that environment. If you look up or down or right or left, your environment changes as you look around it, okay? That's different than AR. So AR is what we call augmented reality. And AR is where you don't block out what's really around you. You actually still see the classroom in front of you, or you see, whatever environment you're in. It adds things on top of it, okay? So in this video here, I would encourage you to check out the video when you get a chance. They show this for like volcanoes. And so the kids are using their phones and they're using Expeditions, but they're not putting them inside of the Google Cardboard, because we're not doing VR, we're doing AR. What's happening is the phone is using the camera to show what's in the classroom, and then the AR, the augmented reality, is superimposing on top of the real world these 3D objects. So whether it be, I think we saw a volcano, I think we saw meteors, or excuse me, the asteroid belt, whatever it might be, what it allows you to do is bring those things into your environment. So it's not virtual reality. We're not blocking out everything we're seeing and replacing it with, oh, it looks like I'm, on top of Mount Everest. No, it's Mount Everest has come into my classroom. So that is a big shift from just VR to now be including AR. And so this is rolling out. I think it'll be a while before it becomes as common as regular Expeditions. They're going to bring it to some schools through their Pioneer program. You can click there on the Pioneer program if you would like to sign up to be one of those schools. And hopefully, if they come near your area, you can be part of the beta testing of all of this. But just like Expeditions, it'll go through that Pioneer program portion, and then it will become just standard that anybody will be able to use it. But that's what they typically do. So definitely feel free to click the Pioneer program and find out how you can plug in to possibly take advantage of some of these new augmented reality. Oh, that's a great one. So we got the globe of the Earth sitting right there in the classroom. That's a really good video. Oh, there we go. We got cell division. Excellent. Very nice. All right. So that I was excited about very much. All right. What else came out of I/O? Just a couple quick things. Google Assistant is now available for iOS. So if you're an iPhone or iPad user, Google Assistant is basically where you say, "Okay, Google," and you ask it questions and it talks to you. So it's like Google's version of Siri. And so that has rolled out to iOS. It had only been on Android prior to now. This not a big deal, but it's worth mentioning. Google Assistant now gets a keyboard entry option. So you don't have to say, "Okay, Google," and talk to it, because sometimes you might be somewhere where you have to be quiet. Maybe you're in a library or something like that. You can now actually just type to the Google Assistant as well. Now, this next one, I think when they showed it at I/O, they were trying, it was probably being demonstrated more as a consumer product, but I'm really interested to see what impact this is going to have on education, because sometimes you have things that are very educational, like this. Google Expedition is getting augmented reality. Clearly, that's an educational thing. Google Lens, I don't think is being built for education, but it's something that I think with education we can absolutely use. Now, what is Google Lens? So this is a new product that Google is rolling out. And what it basically does is allows you to point your device, whatever has, a camera on it, so your phone probably, but it could be your tablet as well, point your device at just the world, at really anything. And the Google Assistant is basically now going to take a look at whatever you're pointing it at and try to figure out what that thing is and give you information on it. So, if you were to, in this case, look at a picture of a flower, it comes back and says, "Here's what I found. That's a milk and wine lily, excuse me." And so you could click that button and you could find out all about that flower, or here's nearby florists, or here's more information. And so anything we can point our phone at now, it's going to be able to basically run a artificial intelligence powered Google search and say, "Oh, I know what that is. I can tell you the thing you're looking at." So you think, wow, that would be really, amazing if you were to, I don't know, whether it's science and you're, pointing your phone at, in this case, different plants, whether you're in a museum and you're pointing your phone at different artifacts there. Really curious what may come from this. I don't know. In math, point your phone at a mathematical problem. What's it going to do with that? That's the thing that's really going to be interesting. This is just a hint at what's going to come from this. I'm really curious to see where it goes. But the point is, just by showing an item to your phone or your tablet, I'm assuming this will work through the Chromebook camera as well, since Chromebooks can and will continue to be able to run Android apps as well. So very well could be coming to Chromebook as well. But the Google Assistant will now not just listen to your voice, not just listen to or not just see what you typed, but now it'll actually also use what it sees through the camera to give you information. So I can see that really opening up a lot of neat options for schools. Google's always adding new things to arts and culture. Just FYI, just be aware, if you have not been to Google Arts and Culture, absolutely, you need to check out that site. They've added a new collection on the Forbidden City. So this blog post from Google lets you know that they have added this new content on the Forbidden City, and talks about all the different things they have added. Looks like we've got probably a lot of scanned artwork, but my guess is also artifacts as well. Again, if you're not familiar with the Google Arts and Culture website, it is phenomenal. We'll go ahead and shoot on out to Arts and Culture. This is the main page here of Google Arts and Culture. And from here, you can go in and search by artist, by mediums, by art movements, by historical events, by historical figures. So this doesn't have to be just for art. It definitely is a phenomenal thing. If you teach art, this is a great way to get, like we said before, up close and personal. You can see the brush strokes of all of the amazing paintings over time. But it's not just for art, it's also for history. You can come in here and choose historical events, and you can get loads and loads of primary source documents and photographs and artifacts. That basically what Google's trying to do is they're trying to record all of our history. They're trying to take all of these primary source documents, all of this great artwork, and make sure that it gets scanned in at crazy high resolution, so that we'll always have that and have no fear of losing those things or having to, the only way to access them would be through a museum. So just heads up, they're continuing to add new things to it, and that's their latest edition. Quick access is coming out to Google Drive. It hasn't shown up on mine yet, but what quick access is when you go into open up Google Drive at the top, it'll have some suggestions of your most commonly accessed files. Again, using some machine learning and artificial intelligence. I haven't seen that yet. When I've gone to Drive, it sounds like they said it's rolling out. It's launching to Rapid and scheduled as until June 20th. Okay, I am on Rapid release, but I haven't seen it yet. So it still is on its way rolling out. But again, the point is they just want to save you a little bit of time. So if you open up Google Drive, Google's going to try to suggest, I think one of these documents might be what you're looking for because you seem to open it all the time. And so it will just hopefully save you a little bit of time with some of your most common documents that you need to open. Let's see. And the last bit is just a little bit more on Google Sites, and that will finish up our what's new section. So a couple new Google Sites things came out at the very tail end here. One was about the publishing settings. So basically, when you go to publish your website, it used to say a couple of things. One was who's allowed to visit your site. Is it anybody in the world, or is it just people from your school? And then it had this other checkbox, and they were concerned it was confusing people. There was a checkbox that says allow my site to appear in search results. And I wonder if that's still the case here. Have they changed it yet? Let's go into my settings, see if they've changed it yet. No, they have changed it already. Okay, so this has already taken place. So it used to say, allow my site to appear in search results. And I think their take was maybe people got a little confused by, well, what does that mean, allow my site to appear in search results? So the new version of that now says, request public search engines to not display my site. So basically, all they've really done is pretty much reworded this to say that when you create a site, if you do not want people to list your site in their search engine results, you can check this box, basically keeping your site a little bit more private, a little bit more, let's say, unlisted, where it's public, anybody can get to it, but I'm asking that search engines don't display it. Now, why would you do that? Again, it's more for if it's a web page that, maybe you don't need everybody visiting. It's more for something that you're just doing for a project with your students. And rather than having it get indexed by Google so that if somebody types in a student's name, suddenly it's bringing up that website, this would basically say, unless somebody knows the exact address, unless I gave them the exact address for that website, they're not going to find it. If I run a Google search or a Yahoo search or whatever, Bing search, the public search engines are not going to index that site. Now, if you do switch this and say only people in your school can visit your site, it automatically removes that option, because if it's only your school, then there's no reason for it to be showing up in Google search results for the rest of the world. It's only when you say anybody on the web that you now get that option. So that was one of the updates. The other update is really a nice one, and that is Google Sites now has the option to duplicate pages. So if I go into my pages section of my site I was building and say, you know what, I want to take this class docs page that I created and I want to make another one very similar to it. Well, in the past, I would have to go, I guess I got to make a whole new page and rebuild that page with my little tweaks. Not anymore. Any page you have in Google Sites, you can now hit the 3 dots and you can choose duplicate page, and it will make a carbon copy of that page. Now that's really nice to save you time if you need multiple pages that look similar, but it also can be great just for templates. So for example, when we do our webinars, if I pull up our tech integration page and I go over to our recorded trainings, when I do the webinars, every one of these, the pages look identical. If you go in and you say, oh, this looks like one of their webinar pages, there's always a title at the top, a blurb about it, there's the webinar, there's resources, chat, evaluation certificate. That is the same format we use for every single webinar. Well, in the classic sites, that's because I saved it as a template, and I don't have to recreate it every single time I do a new webinar. I just use the template and I just change, a couple of key things in it. Well, thankfully, we can now do that in the new site. So I could make basically a template page. I could set up a page that looks just the way I want it to be. I could, if I wanted to, then even hide it from navigation so nobody even sees it. It could just be a template page in my site that nobody else even sees, but anytime I want to use it, I could go up and say duplicate page. It would make a new copy of it, and then I could make that be a visible page that people could then see on the site. So that is a nice updated feature for sites. All right, guys, I think that gets us to the end of what's new. Now, again, if anybody has something that I missed that you're aware of, please feel free to add it. Or if you've got questions or comments on any of this, feel free to leave feedback on this. Go ahead and, highlight something and throw a comment in on the side, or just, type down below or somewhere in there. I do believe this is set up for edit rights for everybody. Yep, anybody can edit. So yes, you are more than welcome to leave feedback or comments right in the document. Let's go, though, down to our next section, which is Q&A. And see, we do have a couple of questions here. Definitely encourage you guys to put any questions in here each time. And if you have an answer to somebody's question, please feel free to fill in your answer as well. I may not have the answer to all of them, but all together, hopefully we can figure out what the answer is. So our first question that got submitted today was, I'm interested in hearing whether anyone has decided to wholeheartedly adopt team drives as it stands now, or whether you're taking a wait and see approach. So if anybody is watching this live right now, or even recorded, you can leave comments later on as well. I'll leave the commenting feature open. So we'd love to hear from folks if you have embraced Team Drive. Right now here at Spark, I haven't had a whole lot of occasion to do it, just because my teammate retired. So Anthony, who used to work with me here, he retired several months ago, and so I don't have a team. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not true. I mean, there's a lot of great folks here at Spark, but my team, just me and Anthony, he's gone. So I don't have a specific team that I am now routinely exchanging documents with. Everybody else that I work with here, it's just, on a case-by-case basis. So I really have not had a chance to use Team Drive on a day-by-day basis. But if some folks have, if you have had a reason to use it, please feel free to add your feedback into that question. I'm sorry, I don't think I probably have much to offer. I know the mechanics of how it works, and I've played around with it, but haven't had really an occasion to do much more with it than that. While folks are filling in there, the next question said, will the new chat within Docs be included in Google Vault? That's a good question. Let's see. So because it never, well, yeah, it never was before, right? Or was it? Now, see, now I'm going to draw a blank here as to whether the old chat got included or not. Because this is now going to be a Hangouts chat. I do not know. That is a great question. Let's shoot back up to that section and let's see. We're going to have to poke a stick at this one. I am sorry, I do not know. So let's head back up here and take a look at where that was at. So, I'm probably looking right at it now, and I'm not going to see where that was at. Here it is, chat. Let's go ahead and go back into that, and let's see if even on this page, if they mentioned anything about Vault. They did not. So let's go down to the Help Center, where we had a little bit. Nope, this is just going to be about the settings. So this probably as well is not going to indicate that. I'll do a quick search again for Vault here. No, Vault is not showing up. So I don't know. That's a good question. I do not have an answer to that one off the top of my head as to whether or not the new chat, if somebody knows, I see there's a bullet there. So if Anonymous Rhino knows, please do check that. Let us know if you're aware of that. And I will investigate that. And, I can come back and amend this document with some additional information. Up here, we are getting some feedback on Team Drive, using it at Perry quite a bit in the last few months, and I love it. We were early adopters. We've gotten some great feedback from teachers. Okay, so that's encouraging. My biggest concern is that we have many use cases that would make Team Drive within Team Drive useful. The alternative would be a very large list of individual Team Drives at the top level. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. So we're basically saying, if you really embrace Team Drive and start using it a lot, are you going to be overwhelmed with so many Team Drives that in itself becomes a management challenge? That suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I've got dozens of Team Drives I belong to. And so the idea would be, what if, could you have a Team Drive inside a Team Drive sort of thing? Would that ever be a possibility? So the response from Perry is that I'm pretty sure I understand what you're asking. We have a few building level teams and a few unique teams. There are features within the team that allow you to set permissions on individual folders. And that's true. That was where my thought was going with this, was that don't forget that when you set up a Team Drive, you can still micromanage. You can still do things inside of that Team Drive. So like here, I've got a Team Drive called test001, and I got a few files in it. If I go up to the new button and I click like new folder, I can create, a test folder inside of that Team Drive. And so that can also be micromanaged. So I can go into that test folder, and I can go, should be able to go into my sharing settings here. I'm going to now make myself a liar. Oh, nope. It is saying sharing disabled. Oh, it's view only. Now, let me go back up to my original and let me see if I go back to my settings. We're going to poke a stick at it. Let's go back in and let's take a look at our settings as how I've set this up. So it looks like Anthony and I have full access. Spark Online has view only. Let me go ahead and I'll pop that up to edit access for right now. Now let's see if that makes any difference on. Nope, still saying that it is view only. Well, I don't know. That is interesting. I wonder if we've got some restrictions still on our folders inside of there. Let's do a refresh. Sometimes we just need to do a refresh and that's enough. Now it's still showing the folder as being as not being able to be changed as far as the sharing settings in it. Looks like I can change my documents, going in and tweaking those. Yep, looks like I can tweak my documents, but at the moment it does not seem to be allowing me to do anything with the folder there. All right. So let's finish up what was mentioned in here. There was some more text. It says, think of the thumbnails like Google Classroom. I click the icon for my language arts team, and there's everything I need for language arts and folders. I currently use 4 teams for my own usage, and it is organized in an easy, not overwhelming format. Team Drive does not replace the My Drive area. It just enhances the sharing experience. Okay. So, so it does seem like there's going to be some things that are a little bit unique about using Team Drive. And some of it may still be how things are getting rolled out. There could be some permission changes and features that are still coming out, like we saw earlier in the agenda, where it talked about how they've changed some permissions for being able to drag and drop files in and to drag folders in and things like that. All right. So I guess, yeah, I guess this is probably a wait and watch as we do experiment around with it. But I'm glad to hear at Perry they are having some good success with it so far. I will have to force myself to use it a little bit more. We do have our conference coming up. So I do actually have a meeting later today with our conference committee, and maybe I'll set up a team drive for that, and it'll force me to get a little bit more practical experience with it. And then it looks like, oh, Lance, hey, Lance is Anonymous Rhino. Thanks, Lance. Great to have you here, buddy. So Lance then answered some questions about the new chat. He says, I didn't see anything either, but I would assume it would be because Hangouts text features are included in Vault. It is handy as students do like to use chat from time to time in docs. It isn't a problem as long as students are being responsible. It would be nice to be able to say to students that all conversations are documented. So Lance's thought being that since, Hangouts text features are included in Vault, and since now Hangouts is going to be the engine behind the chat feature, that hopefully that would also be included in Vault. So we'll have to verify that for sure, but that's an encouraging line of reasoning there from Lance. We'll hear more from Lance later on, I think. I think I've got some of his blog posts in the show and tell area. So what you should do, Lance, sometime is you should just jump into the Hangout so you can actually share this stuff yourself, because I probably won't do as good a job as you explaining what it was you posted. So, and I'll just throw that out again as just a general thing. Anybody who would like to be in the Hangout, please just drop me an email ahead of time. Just let me know. I think I put that at the very top. Just send me an email at ericcurts@gmail.com. As long as you can let me know reasonably even if it's 15 minutes before, that's fine. Once we get started, it's a little hard for me to spin that many plates. And if somebody asked to be joined in and I missed you, I apologize for that. But yeah, anybody's always welcome to be part of the Hangout as well. So if you would like to jump on and share, put your screen up and share a neat project you're doing or something like that, I would love to have folks in the Hangout here with me. You don't have to stay for the whole thing. I mean, obviously you can watch the whole thing. You can even just jump on for 5-10 minutes in the Hangout and share your information and then move on. What's this? Eric, will you be attempting to go to the DC Google Innovator Academy? I did not know about give me some more information. Do you mean, is it a meetup or are you talking about a new Innovator Academy, like, how they do each year? Because I'm sorry, I'm not positive what you're asking by that, because I guess the answer is no, because I'm not I'm not sure about the DC Innovator Academy. Maybe throw in a few more details there and I will the new one. Yeah, go ahead and throw the link in there. Yeah, the Innovator Academy, Google has their certifications, including Google Certified Innovator, and that used to be called Google Certified Teacher. And way long ago, when I became part of that program, I went to New York for my Innovator Academy, but it wasn't called Innovator back then. It was the Google Teacher Academy. So I think it was back in 2012 or so. I went to the New York one. And I know that they are constantly rolling out new Innovator Academies around the world. I just have not been paying attention to that enough to see what's coming up in that right away. So you may be referring to one of the new academies that's on the horizon. We'll swing back around and take a look at that link once you get that thrown in. All right. The last section is show and tell. We will go back up and we'll revisit those Q&As because there may be a few more things that show up in there. But the last section is show and tell. This is basically where, again, we just talk about what are some neat ways you're using Google in your classroom, or what's a new add-on or extension somebody's come across, or just a great blog post somebody made that shares something useful in Google Apps. So the point of this section, though, is all about using Google tools in our schools. There's a lot of links here. Again, I'm probably not going to be able to spend a lot of time on each one of them. Some of them we might spend a little bit more than others, but if it's on this list, I definitely encourage you to read through these. So if something here catches your eye and I don't spend enough time on it, please follow the link. All of these are blog posts that I've come across in the last month that I was impressed by and said, you know what, this is good stuff. People need to be aware of this. Now, the first couple were from my blog, so I'll get those out of the way first of all, and then everything else after that are wonderful things I've learned from others in the Google community. So a few things that I threw onto my blog this month. One was about creating your own lit trips for Google Earth. And so this link will take you out to that blog post. Now, this may sound familiar at first. You may say, Eric, didn't you talk about lit trips last month? I did, but that was actually a different blog post. That was an earlier one about just taking lit trips. So if you go and take a look at that, this was in April. And so we talked about how Google Earth could be used for what we call lit trips, which is basically when somebody takes a novel and they find all of the locations of where things happened in that novel, and then they go into Google Earth and basically they put all of those locations into Google Earth. So in this case, here is one on a book called Esperanza Rising. That's the example I had used. That's a book my son, my middle school son, had to read this year for school. So we read that together, and somebody had taken the time to find every location that the book covers. And they went into Google Earth and they added spot by spot by spot by spot by spot all of the different locations. And not only do they add the locations to it, but then they add additional information. So when you click on a location, it flies you into that spot, but then it pops up a box with, other information that you might not have realized, or activities to explore, or videos to watch, but it's things that supplement and extend and enhance the story. So basically, a lit trip is taking a novel, mapping it out, and then supplementing it with activities and videos and pictures and links and resources to basically allow the student to really live inside the book. So they read the book, but then they can go see what it looks like in real life. Now, that was last month where I talked about just how to use lit trips in the new Google Earth. So that's all that one was about. Now, this month, the tweak I did was I said, how about creating your own? There's a lot of great lit trips out there, but maybe you want to make your own or have your students build a lit trip. What a wonderful way for them to do a project, to do a report. Instead of a regular typed up report or just a slideshow or whatever else, let this be another option. Let them build a lit trip that tells the story of the novel that they've been reading. So basically what I did was I showed how to do that in this blog post. And the tool I chose for this is a tool called Tour Builder. A lot of you are probably familiar with it, but if not, it's a really easy to use tool. There's other ways you can do this. This is not the only way to build a lit trip. And by the way, this doesn't have to be a lit trip. Any kind of tour. This doesn't have to be, your language arts class. This could be used to build a tour of the Lewis and Clark expedition, or famous spots in a battle, or for science, visiting different biomes, or, in math class, going from place to place to show different buildings with different geometric shapes. This could be a tour of anything on Earth. It doesn't have to be a lit trip, but in this case, for this example, I did it like a lit trip, but please feel free to take the same idea and apply it to any content where you're basically plotting locations on a map and then giving additional information about those locations. You're augmenting it with additional information. So what I did was I talked about how to use Tour Builder. And basically, and the book I used was one called Small as an Elephant. It's a book I read to my boys. It's a great book. And it covers a trip this boy goes on from up in Maine trying to get down to Boston. And so in Tour Builder, basically, I explain how you go in and you create a tour, and then you can fill in the general information about your book, like the title and the author and so forth. And then basically what you do is you just type in locations and it searches for them in Google Maps. And when you find the location you want, you say add it to the tour, and blink, it drops it right on your tour. You can then add photos and videos up to 25 per location. You can put dates with it if it does have dates, and then you can add information. You can tell a story, you can ask questions, you can add links. You can also change the icon as well for that location. So when that's all done, what you then wind up with is this tour of all of these different locations. And so here's the one that I built for Small as an Elephant. And so all of these are individual locations that I searched for and dropped on the map. And for each one of these locations, I then added information about it. So I added in additional text and links just like you would do in a lit trip. Now, when you're all done with it, building it, you build it in Tour Builder, but when you're all done with it, then you export it. From Tour Builder, you simply go up to your menu, you click Export, and you choose Download KML. That's Keyhole Markup Language, because Google Earth used to be a program called Keyhole before it got bought by Google. So KML is a keyhole file. So you download that KML, and that's it. Once you've got it downloaded, you can basically go back to my other blog post. Whoops, wow, it's gone now. Go back to my other blog post where now you go to Google Earth and you go to My Places and you import the KML file, and it will suck it back into Google Earth now. So I build things in Tour Builder, then I open them up in Google Earth. And in Google Earth, you can now play that tour. And it's like building your own lit trip or whatever the tour might be. So I would definitely encourage you to try that out, whether it's you as a teacher or better yet, what a wonderful opportunity for kids to express their learning and understanding by putting items on a map, connecting them together in a tour, and then supplementing them and explaining them with additional text and pictures and videos and information. So that was one of the posts off of my blog this month. Another one was about graphic organizers. It just dawned on me this month that I had never actually put this on the blog way back when I first started doing webinars. My very first webinar ever was using Google Drawings for graphic organizers. So this was the very first one. And I wasn't even doing the blog at that time. I didn't have Ctrl+Alt+Achieve set up yet. So I realized, I never put that on. I never put that on the blog. So this is not necessarily new information. It's just nicely organized finally into a blog post. So this is a blog post on 30 free Google Drawings graphic organizers. And I do have that original webinar embedded here if you want to learn all about how to make your own graphic organizers. Fair warning, it was the first webinar, so it is a little rough around the edges. I was still sort of figuring that out at that time. But below the webinar, and there's also a Google Doc with tons of information on how to make your own graphic organizers if you prefer a written document rather than a video. And then below there, it's just 30 graphic organizers. And you can download, or make your own copy of any of these. Just click the link and it'll say, do you want to make a copy? And you say make a copy, and boom, it'll make your own copy of that. And so what I've got is loads and loads of them. Word study diagrams, state and country research webs, 5 cents diagram, Frayer models, compare and contrast, cause and effect, fish bones, season sorters, question charts, story maps. You get the idea. There's 30 of them. So you can just keep on scrolling down, and for each one of these, you can click the link and it will do what I said. It'll make a copy. Now, the way I set these up is you've got the canvas, which is where the graphic organizer is, and the kids can just come in, double click, and inside of any one of these, type in their text, add their pictures, do whatever they want. On the side here, I've got a directions box. This is not inside of the canvas. So this will not show up when people, like if you were to download this, if I go File, Download As, it's not going to download the directions. Only the canvas is what gets downloaded. So the directions basically tell them how to use this, give them a link to the help guide if they need more information on that. So definitely take advantage of those, whether it is you pushing one of these out to your students through Google Classroom for individual work or for a full class brainstorming activity, or whether you take one of these and modify it. Please feel free to, no problem. Just make a copy of one and change it as need be. Use it as a base to build your own version of it. That's fine. Or again, have your students do the same as well. And then the last thing that I included in my blog this month was end of year classroom cleanup tips. I would encourage you to take a look at this in more depth. I'll just briefly scroll down through and give you the general idea here. But the point is, as the year wraps up, you want to think about perhaps cleaning up some of your Google classrooms from this year because those classes are coming to an end. So this may be something you do next week if you're not quite done yet with the school year. But the point is, if you just keep creating new classes year after year after year, Google Classroom could get a little bit messy. You could have an awful lot of classes showing up in there, and it could have some other consequences as far as just making things a little less efficient. So what I did was I mentioned 6 things to think about when it's time to wrap up the year with Classroom. These are all optional. There's none here that are required. You don't even have to do, you could do some and not others. You can just pick and choose what you think. So if some of these work for you, please take advantage of them. So my first tip was make sure that you've returned all of your student work. Are there any assignments that you forgot to hit return on? You didn't send things back to the kids? Good time to do that would be now. And I talk about going into the work section of Classroom and seeing all of the assignments that are still out there and checking to make sure you have actually returned them so they say returned rather than just done. And when you do that, if you haven't been doing this all year, after you've returned all of them, you can also use the little 3 dots over here to move these assignments into the reviewed section just to let you know you've already checked them. That way you know you've gone through those. And we say, Eric, what's the big deal? I mean, why do I have to return everything to the kids? The biggest reason why I say this is please remember, when you use Google Classroom, if a student clicks the turn in button and they turn something into you, Google makes you the owner of the file. When a student turns something in, while it's in the turned in status, they are no longer the owner. You actually own the file until you return it to them. Then it makes the student the owner again. Why is that important? Well, the reason why it's important is if you've got work you've not returned, and if you're the owner of it, in the future, if you decide to clean up your drive and delete those files, if you're still the owner, you will actually really delete the file for real because you're the owner of it. It will be trashed and gone. On the other hand, if you have returned the files, you're no longer the owner. If you do delete that student work, you're not really deleting it. You're just removing it from your drive. So it's better to make sure you returned everything so that you don't accidentally delete something for real later on in the future. Okay, so that's the first tip. The next one is if you want to, you might want to consider unenrolling your students from their old classes. Certainly you don't have to do this, but I know sometimes people say, I don't really like the idea of, next year a student can open up the class from last year and maybe tell the kids from next year some key things that I don't want them getting into yet. There's some, project information that, for whatever reason you prefer they not be accessing until it's that time of year for them. Well, you could, if you want, remove students from old classes. So you can go into the Students tab, select all the kids, go to Actions and Remove. Doesn't delete their files, and they don't lose. It's not like, it's not going to go through and wipe out all their files or anything like that. You're not deleting that. You're just taking them out of the class so that they cannot open up your class again and get back into it in the future. So that's just something to consider if you might want to do that. Of course, this is the most common one. I think we all do this. Tip 3, archiving your old classes. When you're done with the class, click the 3 dots and say archive. What that does is it basically moves it off of your main screen and it freezes the class. So nothing new can happen in it. You can't get new assignments. Kids can't turn things in. Now, the students can still access it. They can still look at the old class. That's why you might want to consider unenrolling kids if that is a concern of yours. This just freezes the class so they can't make any new changes to it, but they could still view the class. Now you can archive classes and you can still copy and reuse your old posts and assignments. That is perfectly fine from Classroom. You're always allowed to reuse old stuff even if it's in the archive. The next thing, old class calendars. If you've got Google Classroom assignments that have due dates, that causes a Google Calendar to get created for that Google class. Well, that means if you've got 5 or 6 classes every year, little by little, you're going to start getting a mess of calendars inside of Google Calendar, which could make that really difficult to navigate because you're going to have so many class calendars showing up in there. Even if there's nothing on them anymore, they're still going to show up in your calendar list. So you can go into Google Calendar. You can click the little small down arrow to the right of one of the calendars, and you can say, hey, I want to hide this calendar from my list. Just don't show it anymore. It's okay that it exists. I just don't need to see it anymore. Or you can go all the way into calendar settings and choose permanently delete this calendar. And you can delete an old classroom calendar as well. Next, if you use Google Drive a lot, and if you dig deep into Google Drive, you will see that you have a classroom folder. So if I go into my Drive, you'll see I have a classroom folder, and that's where all of my classes are at. Now, maybe you never go there, and that's fine. You don't have to. Perhaps you never even go into that classroom folder. But if you do, it could get pretty crowded. It could start becoming a bit of a mess. And so I explain how you're allowed to move your old classroom folders anywhere you want. Does not hurt them. It doesn't break anything. So for example, you could create a new folder called archive or old classes and just drag and drop your old classes into it just to clean up that classroom folder a little bit more. And the final tip I said is if you want to, you can also remove old class files from Shared With Me. Now, I don't fight this fight. I don't try to keep Shared With Me cleaned. It's just, it's like I say, Grand Central Station. There's just too much stuff coming in and out of it all the time. But if this really is something that bugs you and you really like to have a clean Shared With Me, a lot of times your Shared With Me, I'll pull mine back up here. A lot of times your Shared With Me will get files in it. Like here's this George Washington, or excuse me, this math vocab worksheet. So this is a math vocab worksheet that got turned in by these test users in Google Classroom. So if those classes are over, you may say, you know what, I want to get rid of all of these files from Shared With Me to kind of clean it up a little bit. You absolutely are allowed to. There's no problem with that. You're completely allowed to do that. You can go to Shared With Me, you can grab these files and you can hit the delete button and you can remove them or right click and say remove. You're totally allowed to do that. Just don't forget what I said earlier, and that is make sure you have returned the files to the kids first in Classroom, that you returned the assignment. Because again, if you delete stuff and you're the owner, then you are deleting a file. Whereas if you're not the owner, you're just removing it from your list. So just to be safe, I always encourage you to return them ahead of time. Just make sure you've done that. Otherwise, yeah, go through and clean up your Shared With Me if you want to. Again, it's a little bit, for me, I think it's fighting a losing battle because it just keeps filling back up. So I don't worry too much about it, but did want to give you all the possible tips to consider. Okay, so those were the things that I put on the blog this month. There's a whole mess of other awesome things. And again, we're not going to have time to go through every single one of these, but let me at least make you aware of some of these really neat resources that are out there. First thing up, this is a blog post from Katie Seamer. Katie is one of our leaders for the GEG Ohio community down in the Cincinnati area. Katie does phenomenal things. Katie had a great blog post earlier this month about 3 tools to use: DocuTube, TurboNote, and BriefTube. 3 tools to extend what you're doing with YouTube to take it to the next level. DocuTube is an add-on that allows you to play YouTube videos inside of a Google Doc, which is something you technically can't really do. You can't embed videos, but what it does is if you have a YouTube link in a doc, DocuTube allows you to pop up a little window with the videos in it. So you don't have to leave the document to play the videos, which can be great since you don't have to go out to YouTube and see all the ads and suggested videos and things like that. TurboNote is an extension that allows you to take notes while watching a video. So you watch the video and you take notes that get time stamped and connected to the video. excellent way for kids if they need to be learning from a video to take their own notes, and they can also share them with others and collaborate. Love it. And then BriefTube, this one does have a cost if you want to use the full version of it, but it's still pretty snazzy. What it will do is it will create for you a transcript of the video. So you feed it a video, it will summarize, create a transcript and a table of contents and a word cloud of a video. The free version will process the first half of the video so you can see how it works. The paid version will do the entire video. So thanks to Katie for sharing that. The next blog post that caught my eye was just one on Google Scholar and some lesser known features of Google Scholar. If you have not used Google Scholar, it is a great there we go. There we go. If you have not used Google Scholar, it's a great search tool from Google that allows you to search for scholarly peer-reviewed articles. So if it's a high school student who is doing a research project, or if it's you and you're working on your master's degree and you need to be able to look up scholarly articles, this blog post explains a little bit more about some cool things you can do, such as saving your search results, creating citation alerts. The one I did not know about was the third one that's mentioned here, which is the ability to tie Google Scholar to your library. Like, you know, if you like, I would think like through InfoHio perhaps, but they talk about if you have access to like EBSCO and ERIC and ProQuest, they say contact your librarian. And supposedly, I've never done this before. That's why it caught my eye. There's a way to go into the settings for Google Scholar and click on library links and link your library in. The point being, if you find something inside of Google Scholar that you want to access, sometimes those are just abstracts, not the full text. But if you've got it linked to InfoHio or whatever, you know, databases that we have available, it may pop you straight out then to the actual source, so that you wouldn't have to just use the abstract to get the full text. So that's something I've got to investigate further, but it really caught my attention. So talk to your librarian and see if they know anything about that as well. So I thought that was really awesome. All right, next up, Matt Miller did a great blog post about how to improve the paper writing process. So if you are having your students do research papers, this is just a really nice smorgasbord of ideas that Matt has put together, covering, you know, from the very beginning, getting organized with Keep, taking notes, using split screens, using Google Scholar, organizing your material, adding images that are copyright friendly, creating charts and drawings and so forth, citing properly. Basically, he takes the whole process from the beginning to the end and gives you a lot of really helpful ideas all the way along the way that could help your students if they're writing a research paper. You may pick up a couple new ideas you didn't know of. Next one, 7 geeky tips and tricks for Google Docs. This is a short video that goes through 7 tips and tricks for Google Docs. You may already know these, but again, it may just be something to help you pick up. It deals with advanced sharing, forcing a copy, assigning tasks to users, the Explore tool, the star feature, the revision history. So you may know those, but again, there may be one of those 7 tips or tricks you were not aware of. Here is a blog post on digital literature circles. And so what this one is a Google slideshow that has been created to make a digital online version of this activity. I think there's probably a link to it here. There it is. There's the template link at the bottom, and I'll make a copy for you. So if you do this normally without technology, this allows your students to be able to go in and put in the book title and then have somebody be the summarizer. And here's their information. They're going to, says your job is to prepare a brief summary of the reading. Your group discussion will start with your 1 to 2 minute statement that covers the key points. And so basically the summarizer would go in and do that. They would fill in their summary. And then you've got the questioner discussion director, and they would do their part of it. And then there's the connector and the illustrator and the travel tracer and the predictor. And so you got all these different roles, and they can go in and they can fill in their information, and then they can get peer feedback from their colleagues. So I thought that was great. Here's another template, very much like that, same sort of idea. This is one on the scientific method. So again, same idea, a Google Slides template that uses, that helps you work through the scientific method. Let me see if I can find the link directly to it. There it is. Give a click on that. And again, you can make your own copy of it. Just go File, Make a Copy, and you'll have your own copy. But again, this is a scientific method, so it goes through, the problem, the research, the hypothesis, health and safety, experiment, results, conclusion. And again, just to save a little bit of time, students can edit this, fill in their information, answer the questions, add an image, and it basically just walks them through that whole process of going through the scientific method. So a nice free template available there. Next up, 10 tips for organizing your Google Drive. This comes from John Sowash, and you may know some of these, but again, who knows? You might pick up something new. He's talking about using folders and naming files carefully, sharing folders, not files, gets into lots of other things here about using Shift-Z to add files to a folder, dealing with shared with me, purging old files, uploading, adding emojis to your folders, coloring your folders, using Google Keep, and so forth. So again, you may pick up some helpful ideas there. Next up, Alice Keeler did a nice blog post on 7 hidden tips for Google Sites. So if you're using the new Google Sites and feel like you've exhausted everything in there, there may be some stuff Alice has come across that you are not aware of. So she talks about 7 tips, from copying your header, double-clicking, inserting text boxes, aligning vertically, resizing your embeds, using Drive Video, and hiding pages. So some nice helpful tips there. Next up, we have an interview, a podcast. This is from Vicki Davis. She had a guest on, Crystal Koenig, who talked all about using Google Keep in the classroom. And so if you prefer sometimes not to read only, well, you can read the whole transcript is down below. But if you prefer to listen, this audio podcast will allow you to listen to their conversation and pick up a bunch of great ideas on using Keep in the classroom. And another from Alice. This is a really fun thing Alice did this last month. Is she created a template, a script technically, in Google Sheets to build word searches. So if you would like to build your own word search, she has a template you can make a copy of where you fill in your words, and then you run the script, and it fills in those words into a grid, and then fills in the additional letters, and then you can copy and paste it into Google Docs or into something else and build your own word search. So awesome, neat job there. This next one is about creating choose your own adventure stories with Google Forms. I know we've talked about choose your own adventure stories in lots of ways. I've got a blog post about how to do that with Google Slides. I've got another blog post about how to do it with Google Docs. I know some folks have done choose your own adventure stories with Google Forms, and that's what this particular blog post talks about. The thing that I really like about this that kind of caught my eye more than anything was not only is it a choose your own adventure branching type of story using Google Forms, but here, let me pull this up and I'll show you their example here. Okay, so not only is it like this, so here's the story. I'm getting on this boat. What's my name? Throw my name in here. As you could expect, it's very much like you would expect a choose your own adventure story. You basically read the text and then you make a choice. Do you choose, apparently you've got too much weight to bring on the ship, so you got to leave something behind. Do you leave behind your camera or do you leave behind your tablet? So at first, this looks like very much like a traditional, oh, I'm going to leave behind my camera and let's move on in the story. But no. What's a little bit different here is, in addition to it being a choose your own adventure story where you're reading and making choices, you also have to justify your answer. So this is much more active, less passive. not only do the students make their choices, but now they actually have to type up the reasoning behind it. Now, what's really cool about it was for this particular template, this was set with data validation to force this to be a certain length. I think it's 150 characters. Now, I'm not going to really type that many right now. I'll just put X's in. But you'll notice if I don't type enough, it says, I know you can be more detailed than that. And once I get to 150 characters, there we go. Now I can submit it. So the point is, the students don't just read the story, don't just make choices, but they have to also think about why they're doing that. And they have to actually type up a thoughtful response before they're allowed to move on. That, I think, takes this to another level. It's not just a choose your own adventure story, but it's one that's bringing about a lot of critical thinking as well in the process. So that blog post will, oops, I lost the blog post. That blog post will talk you through how that's done. And then Justin, who created this blog post and created this activity, also provides a template that you can just make a copy of that already has everything linked together, and the students simply just need to go in and put in their own pictures, put in their own text. They don't really have to create the whole thing from scratch. So really, really liked that. Next up, told you that Lance Yoder would show up here eventually. And this, Lance puts out so many great things on his blog. There's never a chance that we won't have something in the show and tell that I pulled from Lance's site. Lance did a bunch this last month, but one of them that caught my attention was adding your voice to Google Slides. Now we know we can't technically do that the way we'd like to with just a simple button that lets us narrate the slideshow. We know Google Slides doesn't do that yet, but what Lance has explained in here is a nice, clever workaround with that, where basically what you do is you use something like Screencastify to record the audio you want for each slide, let Screencastify save that audio to Google Drive, and then using the new feature in Google Slides that lets you add videos from Drive to slides and allows you to autoplay them. Basically, what you wind up with is on each slide, you have a video. You can make it a little teeny small or put it behind something so nobody sees it, but you'll have a video that will autoplay that basically is your voice. So for each slide, now it's a separate video per slide. So yes, this would be so much easier. We know if there was just a record button right in Slides, and it'll happen eventually. But for now, this is a pretty easy way to do it. Kids can just go slide by slide, fire up Screencastify, say what they want to say, boom, drops it right in their Drive, turn around immediately and drop that video right into that slide. And then they can play automatically with the autoplay settings. And as people play the slideshow, they will then hear the voice that has been recorded for each of the slides. Next up, this is a video and podcast from TeacherCast about using Google Tools with young learners. Now, I'm friends with most all of the people in this video, so I can definitely let you know these are great folks. Jeff Bradbury runs TeacherCast, and that's where they do these videos and podcasts. His guest that he had on for this particular one was Christine Pinto. And if you don't know Christine Pinto, she's from out in California, and her focus is all on using Google Apps for young children. We're talking pre-K, K, 1, 2, but definitely pre-K. I mean, really, really little kids. And so if you ever wonder, oh, okay, we're a Google Apps district, but isn't that really for like middle school and high school? Little kids can't really do this, can they? Absolutely they can. And this is a great interview with Christine where she goes through and explains all about how they have used Google Apps in really excellent ways with very young kids. Now they call them TK, which I think is transition to kindergarten. We usually call them pre-K. But they have a little bit of a different terminology in California on that, but same idea. All right, next up, if you're just looking for some quick one-page help guides, Kelly Fitzgerald put out her Google Drive one-pagers. So basically it's Google Slides, but each slide is a portrait shape rather than landscape, and each slide is just a quick one-pager on something like sharing permissions or creating folders or moving files into multiple folders, dealing with shared with me, team drives. And so just a really nice, easily concise, put together, nice, attractive information on Google Drive. Now, John Sowash had another article that I went ahead and highlighted, which was the future of Android on Chrome OS. If you do have an interest in using Android apps on your Chromebooks, John does a nice job of explaining some of the pain points we've been experiencing so far, but then he goes into what was revealed at I/O, at Google's I/O conference, about all the new upcoming things that they're encouraging developers to work on to make Android apps run better on Chromebooks. So large screen optimization, keyboard integration, stylus support, and so forth. So if that's something that you are passionate about, being able to use Android apps on a Chromebook, and if you've had a little frustration with it, John's article does a nice job of explaining what Google is doing to try to address some of those current pain points. Next up, another one from Alice. This one is a great simple tip. If you use Google Classroom, don't forget there is a mobile version of Google Classroom that provides a lot of other really nifty features that aren't part of the desktop version of Google Classroom. And one of those features is recording video. So it turns out if you're using Google Classroom, the mobile app, so pull it up on your phone, pull it up on your tablet. If you're using the mobile app, when you go to add something, normally if you're going to create an assignment, you can grab something from your drive or a link or a file or a YouTube video. But if you're using your phone or your tablet, in addition to attaching drives and drive files and links and so forth, there's also a take a photo and record a video option right there. So right from where you are creating the assignment or the announcement, right from there, you can click the attach button and say, I want to record a video. It will record you, save it to your drive, and boom, throw that video right into that assignment. Also, kids can go the other direction. They can submit things that way. So if a student needs to turn in an assignment from the mobile app, they can go down to the assignment and they can go down to the section where they can add their own materials, and they can do the exact same thing. They can submit recorded videos in as well. So if you have mobile devices and you're using Google Classroom, just be aware there's actually things in the mobile version of Classroom that are not in the desktop version, such as this, the ability to record video. Very, very nice. This next one is about a new add-on from the folks at Text Help. Now, we love Text Help. They do read and write for Google. They now do what was GMath, which is Equatio. They now have a new add-on out called WriQ, like IQ, I guess, but it's WriQ for writing. And what it is an add-on that will allow you to evaluate a student's writing to find potential errors like grammar and punctuation and so forth. There's a free version which will do all of that. And then there's going to be a paid version that has some additional functions and features. Now, I went ahead and installed this just to show you how it works. So here is a George Washington report from test user number 1. And I had him go ahead and share this with me here. And the WriQ add-on, it's going to be a Google Docs add-on. So you'll go up to add-ons. And if you don't have it installed, you'll just go down to get add-ons. And then from get add-ons, you can just search for WriQ, RWIQ, and there it is. Now, I've already got it installed, but you could go ahead and install that very quickly and easily. Once you've got it installed, you'll come down to WriQ, click on Show WriQ, and the first time you run it, which I've already done, it does ask you a little bit like, who are you? You have to go in and say, I'm a teacher, and where do you teach, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a one-time little welcome thing, but it's pretty quick. But once that's done, this is what's going to come up anytime you fire it up, where basically it's going to say, okay, I'm the teacher, because it's me. Who's the main writer of this document? If more than one person has edit rights to it, it'll list all the people who worked on the document. In this case, it's just test user 1. And what grade is he? Oh, he's an 8th grade student, we'll say. What kind of genre is this? Narrative, informative, or opinion? Well, this is informative, so we'll go with that. You'll see why that's helpful later. And then that's it. Go ahead and click score this document. And now it's going to scan through that whole document to try to find any errors. Give it a second to do its thing. And it's finding stuff, and there are errors. I intentionally tried to throw some in there. So for example, we're seeing things like spelling. Commander is spelled wrong. And here's another spelling. American is not highlighted. Here we've got some punctuation problems that we're missing a period at the end. Probably more, what do we have here? More, yes, spelling. I needed an apostrophe in there. So it's going to try to find all these errors for you. Now, if it does something wrong, you say, oh no, actually that one was perfectly fine. You can go in, you can click on it, and you can say clear the error, and you can clear it out if that really wasn't an error. Or if there was something that they didn't catch, you could, click on it, and you could say, I want to add, an error to it. I want to indicate what was wrong. So it goes ahead and scans through the whole document to try to find where there could be errors in it. Gives you the word count, the sentence count, words per sentence, all that kind of good stuff. Okay. And then once all of that is done, we hit next, and it pulls up a rubric. Now, remember I told you it's important what you chose earlier. Because I chose informational text and I chose grade 8, it is now giving me a rubric that is specific to that. If I had chosen, narrative or something else, I would have gotten a different rubric here and different grade levels. In this case, though, I'll say, okay, you did pretty good on that, so I'll give you at and above for that. And then for this one, we'll do almost, and at, and it's averaging those up to put them at grade level. For the next one, we'll do above, at, and for the final one, we'll do above, at, almost, and above. All right. Nope, one more there. And once you're all done, you hit save, and you can add your own feedback here. Great job. And hit confirm. And now what it's going to do is it's going to insert that into the student's original document so that they have the rubric inserted at the top of the document there. And then it still highlights all of the things that you verified were errors. So the student can now open up their document and see all the things highlighted that they need to attend to, and they can see your grading rubric at the top. So if you're looking for another way to quickly check for potential grammatical errors and spelling errors and punctuation and things like that, but you also want to combine it with the ability to have a rubric that you fill out and insert into the document. This looks like a great tool for that. They say that this will always stay free, the stuff we just looked at as far as grading a student's document, doing the rubric. They said they are going to add other features that go above and beyond that will be part of the paid version of it. But as a free program, just so far right now, what a great option for folks. There's also a dashboard feature that will allow you to track a student's progress over time. So I only have one assignment from that student, but if I had a whole bunch of different students here, I'd be able to pull up that student and see over time how their score has changed as well. So that is WriQ, and that article shows up on Casey Bell's Shake Up Learning. It's a guest post by Jason Carroll from Text Help, the company that makes that. All right, we've got just a few more. We're almost out of time. We tried to do 2 hours. We're just about out of time. I think we'll just squeeze these last few in. Next up, very, very quick and simple, but it's a cool one. Did you know that Ctrl+D means duplicate when you're using slides or drawings? So this is a blog post that explains that Ctrl+D is good for duplicate. And what I mean by that is if I were to come here and let me just find, I'll find a slide. It could be drawings or slides. It really doesn't matter. Either one is fine. Let me see. I'll just grab my one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. What we're saying is normally if you have to make a duplicate of something, we would do copy paste. So I would come here, I'd grab this fish and I would go copy. So Control+C, and then I'd go paste, Control+V, and that would make a copy of it. Okay, that's what we normally do. Turns out you don't have to. Instead, if I simply click on an item and press Control+D, that's duplicate. Okay, so not earth-shattering, but hey, it just saved you some time. So Control-D, boom, boom, boom. You can duplicate images or text. I can come up here, grab this text box, Control-D, boom, duplicate. Simple as that. So that works in slides and that works in drawings. That does not work in docs. It's just for slides and drawings when you're dealing with text boxes and images and lines and stuff like that. But I thought, that's snazzy. I did not know that. The next two are very similar to a post I had about a year ago that I had put on about what to do with your Google Files when you have to leave. So let's say you've got a graduating student, or you are retiring, or you're moving to a new school district next year and you want to take your Google Files with you. So these are two. I should probably throw in, it's an old post, but I should probably throw in the one that I did on this called CloudGopher. And I'll go ahead and put the link in here as well. But these two talk about different ways you could move your files. The first one is from Katie Seymour again, who we saw earlier, talking about those YouTube tips and tricks. Katie shares about a script you can use that Chris Kraft shared at a Google Summit. And this is a script called Drive Migrator. And so Drive Migrator is a script that you can come here and install. And after you install it, you basically tell it a folder that has all of your files in it. And what it will do is move, well, it doesn't move, it makes a copy, because at the moment we can't move Google files into a different domain. And so what it does is it makes a copy of everything you put in that folder into the other account. So that would take all of the things inside of the folder from your school account, and it would make a copy into a personal account. That's one option. So Katie explains that one. Then in this next one on Google Takeout, on this article, it talks about how to use Google Takeout to do something very similar. Now, if you're not familiar, Google Takeout's been around for a long time, but they've recently upgraded Google Takeout to have a new feature, which is the transfer to a new account. It's called takeout.google.com/transfer. And if you go there, you can, from your school Google account, simply put in the email address of where you want to send all of your files. It then gives you a code. You put that code in on both ends. You type it in on the receiving end, and you type it in here as well. And then you select from your drive what you want to move over. Basically, grab your whole drive or whatever you want, and then you just let it run. And so very similar idea. They say it can take days, but it will then just run, and it will transfer all of that. Now, the one that I was going to put, I forgot to link it in. I'll just pull it up really quick here. It is, let me grab it here. It is called CloudGopher. And here it is. This is a paid service, though. The other two are free. CloudGopher is a paid service, and it also can be used to transfer stuff. What it does is it transfers a bit more than just your Drive files and Gmail. So CloudGopher, if you want to grab other things, like it transfers forms, which don't normally get transferred. It transfers shared with me. It transfers, it transfers your calendar. It transfers a ton of stuff. So this one, yeah, here we go. It will transfer all your Gmail. It'll transfer everything in Drive. It'll transfer a calendar. It'll transfer your contacts. It transfers loads of stuff. Now, it starts at $10 per transfer. So be aware there is a cost with that one. But between the three of these, something there should be a good option for you. All right, and it looks like we're just about out of time. 3 minutes left. Let me finish up real quick here. This one is a great article from Jen Fisher on some more tips and tricks for YouTube. So similar to Katie's earlier, she talks about TubeChop, AdBlock Plus, GIF it, and Video Grabby. So some cool YouTube tips and tricks. And here is a non-school related tour builder by Matt Mays. Matt's from Perry. Matt does some awesome things. He did the Stark County ice cream tour. I love it. All right, so this is a Google tour builder built that will take you through everywhere in Stark County if you want to get some good ice cream. We've got Milk and Honey, we've got Taggart's, we've got Heggy's, we've got Creamland. Oh, this is great, Matt. Okay, like I did not need to see this. This is that is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. That is really good. All right, let me swing back up to the show and tell. Okay, or to the Q&A. So Matt said, will you be attempting to go to the DC Innovator Academy? He goes, it's the same date of the Spark conference, so I'm guessing no. Yes, you're right. That is correct. I will not be doing that. But Matt did kindly throw in the link to the Innovator program dates. And so they do have a bunch of these coming up. We've got dates such as Sydney, Australia, Sweden, Brazil, the UK, a lot of upcoming options to apply to become a Google Innovator. And then here's the DC application and dates as well. So excellent. Thank you for putting those links in there. Well, guys, I always try not to go longer than 2 hours, and I actually have a meeting that starts here at 11, so I do need to wrap up. So as we do wrap up, I just want to thank everybody again for being in the Hangout here today. As always, please go to google.apps.spark.org/user group to make sure you know the dates and times of any of our upcoming meetings. I think we're probably going to be done over the summer. Probably fire this back up in August. If anything does happen, though, I will definitely put it on the website as well as in the GEG community. If you did not get a chance to sign in, please don't forget that in the important links, there is a sign-in form, allows me to send you a certificate of attendance and allows me to indicate to Google how many people attended our meetings. But thanks again so much for being here today. I really appreciate that. This document will stay open with comment rights. So if there's something that you're watching later on as a recorded video and you had an answer or you had some additional information to share, please feel free to go on in there and continue to add to the document. And thanks so very much. Take care.